A to Z Futurism, Barrow scale. The Barrow scale is related to utilizing and adapting matter on a microscale, i.e. how far down can we go? John D. Barrow is known for the Barrow scale. Micro-dimensional mastery is written in research by John Barrow. Welcome to A to Z Futurism. This video is outlined into parts or chapters as follows. 1. SI prefixes and orders of magnitude. 2. Micro and macro engineering. 3. Barrow scale and Kardashev scale. 4. Computational mastery. 5. Hyperfiction, technology and futurism. 6. Summary and conclusion. SI prefixes and orders of magnitude. In order to fully comprehend the Barrow scale as well as the Kardashev scale, let us start with a basic rewinding to elementary or secondary education with SI prefixes and orders of magnitude. Numberphilia is the love of numbers, and this is a prerequisite in comprehending high orders of magnitude. The various images outline the very big and very small numbers. Feel free to pause or rewind. SI prefixes in these images displaying the micro and macro scales in counting are internationally recognized and formalized. Moreover, when it comes to data and orders of magnitude, the official highest is yottabytes and then brontobytes. Anything beyond that has not been internationally formalized or standardized. The counting of very large or very small numbers is also related to the computational mastery of bits, bytes, kilobytes, megabytes, gigabytes, petabytes, exabytes, and so on. There are complex linear phases of computational mastery. However, the images of computation beyond yottabytes and brontobytes are not part of SI prefixes that are officially and internationally recognized. It's simply speculative descriptions of computer data, specifically very high orders of magnitude of data, put forward by various researchers decades ago. I shall discuss computational mastery and a linear flow of progress to reach these so-called hyper-civilizations later in this video in relation to the Kardashev scale. Micro and macro scale engineering. Barrow scale allows us humanity to innovate new technology and utilize science and engineering to make megastructures. The megastructure mathematics and sciences applied are also known as mega-scale engineering and essentially require macrophysics. Dyson spheres, astronomical engineering and megastructure brains also require the science of the very small, i.e. microphysics. One should note that macro is the basic dichotomy humanity creates into binary categorization of physics of the small and physics of the big. In replacement of dual binary approach, one can see physics as dynamic, simultaneously relevant, wherein the macro act in a systemized symbiotic way. Physics is not linear or static. The image of the micro and macro scale engineering emphasizes the complexity of studying the very big and very small. Classic examples of structures, specifically brains, include, from least difficulty to most difficult, moon brain, Jupiter brain, asteroid brain, black hole brain, wormhole brain, neutron star brain, cluster brain, galaxy brain, omega brain, and finally AS brain, known as a god star. John D. Barrow, a British cosmologist and physicist, observed that humans have found it more cost-effective to extend their abilities to manipulate their environment over increasingly small scales rather than increasingly large ones. He proposes a reverse classification downward from type 1- to type omega-. Essentially, there are 7 types of micro-dimensional mastery, wherein the last is frequently suggested to be the ultimate mastery, i.e. type omega-. However, one should note that there may also be an inclusion to type 0. Type 1- is capable of manipulating objects over the scale of themselves, building structures, mining, joining and breaking solids. Type 2- is capable of manipulating genes and altering the development of living things, transplanting or replacing parts of themselves, reading and engineering their genetic code. Type 3- is capable of manipulating molecules and molecular bonds, creating new materials. Type 4- is capable of manipulating individual atoms, creating nanotechnologies on the atomic scale, and creating complex forms of artificial life. Type 5- is capable of manipulating the atomic nucleus and engineering the nucleons that compose it. Type 6- is capable of manipulating the most elementary particles of matter, quarks and leptons, to create organized complexity among populations of elementary particles, culminating in Type omega- is capable of manipulating the basic structure of space and time. The Kardashev scale, formulated by physicist Nikolai Kardashev in 1964, originally had only 3 categories or types of civilizations, initially written as Type 1, planetary, Type 2 stellar, and Type 3 galactic. Kardashev's classification is based on the assumption of a growth rate of 1% per year. Kardashev believed that it would take humanity 3,200 years to reach Type 2, and 5,800 years to reach Type 3. However, a physicist, Dr. Michio Kaku, suggests that humanity must increase its energy consumption by 3% per year to reach Type 1 in 100 to 200 years. These types are thus separated from each other by a growth rate of several billion. Type 1, a civilization, close to the level currently achieved on Earth, with an energy consumption of approximately equals 4 times 10 to the exponent of 19 sec. A Type 1 civilization is usually defined as one that can harness all the energy that reaches its home planet from its parent star. For Earth, this value is about 2 times 10 to the exponent of 17 watts, which is about 4 orders of magnitude higher than the amount currently achieved on Earth, with an energy consumption of approximately equals 2 times 10 to the exponent 13 watts in 2020. Type 1 is a level close to today's terrestrial civilization, with an energy capacity equivalent to Earth's solar irradiance, between 10 to the exponent 16 and 10 to the exponent 17 watts. Type 2, a civilization capable of harnessing the energy radiated by its own large star, for example, by successfully completing a Dyson sphere or Matryoshka brain, with an energy consumption of approximately equals 4 times 10 to exponent 33 sec. Such civilizations are able to harness and channel the entire radiation output of their star. The energy consumption would then be comparable to the luminosity of the Sun, about 4 times 10 to the exponent 33 sec. Type 3, a civilization with energy on the scale of its own galaxy, with an energy consumption of approximately equals 4 times 10 to the exponent 44 sec. In physics, it is defined that civilizations of this type have access to energy comparable to the luminosity of the entire Milky Way galaxy, about 4 times 10 to the exponent 44 sec. In accordance with the data available at the time, Kardashev did not go beyond a Type 3 civilization. However, new types such as 0, 4, 5, and 6 have been proposed. You may have realized, from the concept map image above of hyper to ultra civilizations, there are the Type 4, universal, Type 5, multiversal, Type 6, megaversal, and Type 7 omniversal. One must be cautious attempting to describe beyond Type 4 and beyond, because it is, for the most part, extremely unknown areas of science, frequently leading to fictional overviews and speculative ideas of what and how such civilizations may function at those levels. In astronomy, we have not detected anything beyond Type 1 civilizations, therefore the Fermi paradox may be answered simply by the concept of us being very small in the universe. Perhaps a Type 4 or beyond civilizations exist in our instruments, and science has not been able to interface, detect, or visualize such beings. Essentially, in Futurism, the posthumans may have different ontology to visualize, echolocate, and interface with such beings if they exist. If a civilization so advanced that we cannot detect actually exists, it raises some very deep and enduring questions in our time and in the futures. For example, 1. Are intelligence, consciousness, and life a rare phenomenon in a lifetime of the universe, i.e. around 13.7 billion years? 2. Why would it take more than 13 billion years to design and make the first computer in the universe? 3. Do we live in a void, an area of astronomical void space where there is less intelligent life similar to us? If this is true, then is our fate to be alone and wait for posthumans to find alternative technology to reach numerous star systems and galaxies? 3. Can we really trust our human sense of time? It is scientifically written that we see only the past in the night sky. Is this notion of seeing only the past really true? What is there in real time and are higher states of consciousness, dream states, and unknown biotechnological enhancement required to see in real time the distant night sky? 4. Could there have been previous civilizations that made contact with ultraterrestrial life? 5. Why do we live in the KBC void? The KBC void is an enormous cosmic supervoid, estimated 2 billion light-years in diameter, containing the Milky Way galaxy and the local group. 6. Is the micro-dimensional mastery of antimatter propulsion actually the best way to travel to the stars? 7. The silence of heavens or Fermi paradox does not explain why planets form in the first place. The universe is so gigantic and big compared to the most complex life or civilizations. Does it seem somewhat wasteful to have such big spaces with consciousness to arise and then not journey to the stars to explore, discover, and find true purpose or an entity that made us in deep comic time? 8. How far down the Barrow scale can we go? Is it theoretically at the Planck length? i.e., 1.6 multiplied by 10 to the negative power of 35 meters, approximately 1.6 x 10 cubed to the power of 5 meters. In astronomy, there could be numerous planets within our galaxy and the larger void we live in, beyond our local group of galaxies, namely the KBC void, at Type 0 in Kardashev scale and Type 0 in the Barrow scale. As far as we know in astronomy, humanity is the only civilization in the entire universe, or more precisely the group of superclusters of galaxies within Laniakea, the so-called immeasurable heaven titled for our region of space in the universe, that has proceeded beyond Type 2 on the Barrow scale. Accordingly, humanity is currently Type 3 and 4 in the Barrow scale. In addition, Earth is around 0.72 plus, however humanity has not reached Type 1 status in the Kardashev scale. Scientists, futurists and think tanks predict that by the 2100 CE, humanity is very likely to become Type 1 status in the Kardashev scale. One very curious question is related to the Barrow scale. It supposes by 2077, 2100, and the year 3000 CE we may indeed become a B5 civilization in the Barrow scale, thus resulting in modifying structures of the nucleus in atoms and even engineering the nucleons that compose atoms. What sorts of hopeful technology could we make at B5 status? As mentioned before, there is linear flow of computation in deep cosmic time. It is simply flowing in a straight line from basic, mega, super, hyper to ultra, thus quintessential paths actually may occur simultaneously if one were to presume there is an AI god-like entity such as an archai or more formally known as archelect. See my video on archai and A to Z futurism. Essentially big numbers in computer data are relevant in understanding where computing actually comes from in the first place. The digitized world began with 5 kilobytes around the 1950s, however we may not have been the first one to compute. If one were to search huge amounts of data in the history of computing, the frightening conclusion is that xenosophonts in Earth's deep history or otherworldly places within our galaxy and beyond, may have visited long ago. In our time, this is not a radical notion put forward by various ancient astronaut theorists. It's really not about causing a controversy, believing conspiracy theories about hidden aliens, or saying history is completely wrong. It is more accurate to say our knowledge of deep history is incomplete. It's a 100,000 years gap in our history, and things get even more complicated when we look deeper into backcasting geochronological cosmic time before the dinosaurs emerged or formed over time. We actually find a deeply troubling and extremely hostile planet. The paleocontact hypothesis, the Silurian hypothesis in ancient forbidden archaeology is actually a very scary place to go towards. It requires a much more hardy, brutish, and mental fortitude to really comprehend the sheer horror of it all. But the whole purpose of the posthuman in future studies is to move away from the past, live in the present and make a better world. One could surmise that there was life observing our planet, if they became Type 4 or 5 in the Kardashev scale very quickly and in a rapid amount of time. This outlook is counterintuitive as it suggests, life is not rare, this planet is their zoo where they experiment periodically on new species, perhaps even allowing various newly formed evolved beings to enter their biosynthetic collective at specific times. Thus computation is also not rare in the universe, therefore indicating that it does not require billions of years to make a computer. Computational mastery is thought to be unique to humanity. Is this really true? Hyperfiction is intricately and simply allocated to posthumanism as a primary focus of this video, although in academia the modality for educating students is literature focusing primarily on concepts, theories, personalities, places, temporalities and outer space. Hyperfiction and metafiction are also very relevant to future studies. The curiosity of ultraist themes such as Clark Tech utilized in hyperfictitious plots of anthropic heroes meshing with extraterrestrial villains traversing far galaxies is bewildering when one views thousands of Earth's films in science fiction. Humanity is the most anthropocentric species in the galaxy. We literally have zero ideas about Type 4 or 5 xenosophont ontology that are friendly. The most bizarre contradiction is when we have answered the Fermi paradox in fiction, not some, but all the aliens are trying to exterminate us. Some honorable mentions include Type 1, Blade Runner, The Martian, District 9, Chappie, Avengers, Age of Ultron. Type 2, Alien films directed by Ridley Scott, Predator films and games. Type 3, Asgardians, Marvel Comics and Kryptonians, Detective Comics DC. Type 4, Doctor Who. British TV series, Warhammer 40,000, British miniature games produced by Games Workshop. Type 5, Futurama sitcom, 1999. Stellaris released in 2016 on PlayStation 4, Mac OS, Windows and Linux. See the image titles Hyperfictation and Meta-Intelligent Process for more examples. There are numerous debates about type 6 and 7 in the Kardashev scale, however it is far too broad and speculative, thereby lacking accurate information. Most manga comics, Detective Comics, DC, Marvel Comics, Star Trek and Star Wars may be categorized in these types. The primary reason is that type 6 or 7 in the Kardashev scales may require an entity, maker or creator that is omnipotent, but such beings are often out of reach in human understanding. These include beings such as Marvel's, the one above all, TOAA, Detective Comics, DC, the Presence, the Q, Star Trek, Cthulhu Mythos, the Supreme Archetype, Star Wars, the Force, Lord of the Rings, Tolkienverse, Aru Iluvatar, Para-Brahman, Hindu philosophy. Omnipotent beings are only a few and far less known across in fiction due to the unknown nature of such beings, thus we must move on from fiction to real-life technology of future posthumans. While futurism is somewhat speculative, these innovative types of technology listed are relevant in our future studies because in order to make these technologies listed below, humanity may become type 5 in the Barrow scale and type 2 in the Kardashev scales. They are as follows. 360 degrees robotic vision systems. Acid and chemical technology. Active denial system, military. Algae-based technology. Algae-based uranium waste filtration. Anti-gravity flight. Arc electricity. Black hole grenade. Cryotechnology, cybernetic tools, DNA and skin enhancement, self-sustenance, echolocation, electric liquid projectiles, electricity-based technology, electromagnetic shields, EMP, electrostatic grenade or bullet, electrostatic shields, energy from antimatter, energy from arc reactors, energy from black holes, gamma-ray gun, gamma vision, genetic enhancement tools and devices, geological tools, continent and atmospheric control, gravitic optical tractor beams, gravity shields, gravity manipulation and inversion, holographic technology, infrared vision, invisibility cloaking technology, kinetic energy, laser beams and laser shields, lightning weapon, liquid cooling in armored suits, luminescent technology, magnetronic flying vehicles, magnetic shields, metamorphic scientific instruments, mind-controlled drones, multi-tool, nanotechnological, nuclear weapons, orb technology, intelligent plasmas, plasma shields, psionic technology, pyrotechnology, quake technology, shapeshifting flying drones, sound waves sonar technology, spectral vision of electromagnetic spectrum, stasis field, time manipulation, solar shields, teleportation, telepathy, telekinetic technology, thermal vision, time inertia, freezing time, tractor beams, translucent wood, solar panels and devices, tricorder-like devices, ultraviolet light showers, UV light filtration in spacesuits, weather control and adaptation, X-ray devices, handheld. Summary and conclusion. According to Wikipedia, there are numerous publications by John D. Barrow. It is certainly worth reading, and links to Wikipedia are listed in this video description. In summary, the micro and macro are out of sync. Humanity appears to have progressed into the microscopic scale much more than the mega-scale engineering. Most scientists know this, but given enough time, the technological singularity may allow high-toposophic AI entities to arise that multiply to venture outwards into space. The issue of alignment to human goals is also relevant in the future. However, there should be optimism in the singularity, i.e. life will become better, ingenuity gaps shortened, innovations in asteroid mining heightened, and AI that is productive and maybe even friendly. Thank you for watching and have a great day.